Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. Welcome, folks. It's been quite a week here, In fact, I'll even start you off with I was thinking about an outline aspect of it, but let me give you a sort of a feel of what we're going to do this particular hour on Voters Digest. What we're going to do is that we're going to sort of like take the issues that were discussed around the issues here within the country and here from a standpoint, and then go local and bring all of this stuff together, so to speak, because that's really what we want to focus on. And that's what this is all in regard to the whole issue of race. That's really what it's as if to say we've got a big R. We got a big R that we've been discussing, and we're just trying to get it into a smaller version, if you will, but sort of an educational version. You'll understand as you see us go through this. And joining me tonight is next, I've got a couple of guys that are going to be around with me, but initially we're going to start off with the city council. There were two guys that basically ran for that position. One was for the mayor, yours truly, and then the other is Jack. You see Jack? There he is. You see him? Jack Kerfoot. You know, he ran for city council. In fact, he's got Nick Fish's seat. Former Nick Fish, quite a guy. And that election is come August, so we want to make sure we spend enough time on that arena. And then as time goes, we'll pick up Fred Stewart. He'll probably be coming along. He's out there. He's sort of like dealing with the whole issue of the community. And naturally, it is all about the community. That's really what it's all about, okay? So let's go on and start. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going on and start with with this idea. I noticed that, by the way, so I've got this tool in my hand. And as you know, we're all journalists nowadays. Everybody's a journalist. Everybody's got a computer, if you will, or a journalism, and you can write on this thing anytime you want to. And there was a note that was in there from the Willamette Week, and I'm going to read this headline. It says, Commissioner Joanne Hardesty blasts colleague L.U. Daly, no vote, performative ownership. And it was about a budget there. Say early voted against the city budget, saying cuts to the police budget did not go far enough. And boy, I tell you, that was a very interesting comment that was made. We'll discuss that aspect of it. The other things that happened here from a national perspective, Governor Cuomo of New York signed some legislative bill, if you will, into force, basically talking to the whole issue of police reform. That was a very interesting interview, and basically there were some things that were there that really focused on a lot of the things that he said. But the thing that struck me about that was that when he made the point about the fact it was about getting together with the community, with the police, and having a discussion, and then basically the community, the owners, actually got together and talked about the issues that they were very interested in, and they needed to basically get those issues on the table. And that was done. That was done today. And another person that was there that was significant was Al Sharpton, Reverend Al Sharpton. And Sharpton was very, as you know, he carries the cross right off the bat. He carries the cross of racism, and he's been talking about these issues for years. And typically, like you would normally see the president, Cuomo basically he took pens and he signed his whole deal, and he handed out pens to everyone, and he gave Al Sharpton the first pen. I thought that was very significant. And maybe we can talk a little bit more and get some of the guys to comment about what they felt about that particular issue. Then we moved on to another excellent interview, an interview that we've been looking forward to, and that was from the President of these United States. And there are two major medias in the mainstay, and that is the mainstream, and that is Fox and CNN. Well, Fox broadcast the whole interview, and naturally CNN took excerpts of it. They were able to play a little politics with it, but that was an excellent interview. There were some things that came out of there that was, yeah. So if you want to check out that particular deal, you may want to Google that piece. I thought that was good. And then coming here in the Pacific Northwest, then all of a sudden there was quite a bit of interview on the Seattle incident in the state of Washington, and I thought that was interesting. We've got a new state now, or a new nation. I think it was called RAS, if I'm not mistaken. RAS or something like that, or CAS or something like that. They've due respect to some of the folks were occupying about 6 blocks right in the center of town, and they basically put that piece together. I thought that was quite an interesting interview and an interesting concept, and we may want to talk a little bit about that part, and then we're going to move right on back here to Portland, Oregon, and we're going to talk about all these issues around Portland, as if to say we've got our issues here, and that's what we need to do, and basically talk about the folks when this thing all started with George Lowe, sitting up in Massachusetts. I mean, that's when we started this whole deal. And a lot of folks are deviating from that. And we need to get back to the deal. So consequently, we're going to definitely stick around and focus on the focus that we were originally basically given, if you will, with that. So with that, I'm going to open it up, and let's start off with Commissioner Kerfoot. There you go. You get the commissioner involved. Jack, how you doing? I have to do a little side smile on that thing. How you doing, Jack?
Bruce, I'm very well, thank you.
Sounds great.
I think this past week we are seeing some examples of different forms and styles of leadership.
Right.
In some cases, that includes no leadership whatsoever. By that I mean we have a wide range of opinions right now, perhaps precipitated by the death and the murder of George Floyd. But we have everything from, I hear the police that are feeling defensive because they're feeling like they are being attacked. I'm hearing other people on the other far side that's saying we don't need the police whatsoever. And there are others that talk about we need to look at different training and development for the police, and we need to reapportion different funds from the police to different forums to help low-income groups of all races. But the problem that I see is in some cities, and this is one of them, we are jumping straight to a possible solution without listening to all the different voices. And to me, real leadership says you have to listen to all the voices, then discuss the advantages and disadvantages or the pros and the cons of each of those. Now in Portland, the person that I now refer to as the de facto mayor, Commissioner Hardesty, has been speaking out on a wide range of issues on the protest and changes that she wants to see, and she's recommending and trying to characterize the advantages and the disadvantages. So I speak very strongly in support of Commissioner Hardesty. I may not agree with all her positions, but her approach to leadership, I think, is exemplary. The other hand, we have a mayor, Wheeler, that we seem to, maybe he's missing in action. I don't know. He's MIA, at least for the vast majority of the time in the news, and very little announcement has been actually made. And as a mayor and as the entire city council, we need them front and center, leading the way, leading these discussions, trying to bring people together. Right now, we have far too much polarization, left, right, and everywhere in between. And we need to bring the people together to move forward. As you know, Lincoln said, a country divided cannot stand. And we are teetering on collapse because we appear to focus on polarizing positions without listening and collaborating.
Okay, that sounds great. It look like Fred's here now. He pretty well represents the community across the board, the people. And we'll ask him, what is the definition and who is the mayor of the city of Portland? Is it just Mayor Wheeler, or is it the entire city council and the mayor? Basically, we have 5 city mayors, if you will. And the place is definitely not disputized at this point in time. So Fred, where are you? There you are. Fred, talk about this. Who's the leadership and who is the spokesperson for the city of Portland? Are you there? He's looking around. Fred, are you there? He doesn't hear us yet. He's not on. See if he's on, Steve. I don't know if he's on right now. He's still talking and having coffee and cupcakes there with some of the folks in the community. That's where he's at right now. But anyway, just a couple of comments in regards to Jack's comment aspect of it. Well, when you start thinking about the mayor, and not only is he mayor, Will is mayor, he's also police commissioner, which I think is very interesting. Ordinarily, there's a designated person basically dealing with that particular slot. and it's their job, if you will, to deal with the troops on the ground. Basically, the lead person, and kind of get a sense of what's going on with the troops, and then getting back to the mayor, who in turn will get back with city council, have a discussion, and make sure they communicate that to the public, if you will, to kind of give them a sense of what direction they're going to go with whatever issue aspect of it, and right up front with it, that's not being done. And I might add too, I mean, you realize that he just ran for office, and he's not mayor yet. Today he still has a runoff so he's got until that would be November. He's got until November to either it would be decided as to whether or not he will be the mayor at that point in time. So we have the opportunity now, in all due respect, I'm part of that mayorship too. There were 19 of us that ran for mayor, but right now there's 19 mayors, and hopefully that was the other thing I was thinking about when they're having these discussions on budgets right now and things of that nature. Police, I think would have been an interesting idea, a good idea, to bring those folks who were running for city council and those folks who were running for mayor, and then having that discussion of budget or whatever, if you will, just to have that, because in all due respect, a lot of those folks did represent the city of Portland because they ran for office for the entire city of Portland. And there might be some, we're looking for that needle in the haystack. And what better way to do that than have those individuals who actually filed to run for those various positions. So I just want to make sure we got that on the table because now the way the mayor is coming across, he's just running for office. It's just a tool for him to just go around just basically doing this, that, and the other. And I don't like to say, and I'm not trying to say taking anything negative away from him about that particular piece, but we need solutions. So for some strange reason, we got this business about going downtown and allowing that situation to go downtown, and we don't have that many blocks when you really think about it. It's not that much of an area. And you ask the question, why is it always at 11 p.m. at night, that's when it kicks off? And we've known that historically, that's when it all starts, at night. And give me a break, you know what I mean? This shouldn't happen. So with that, let's see if we can get Fred on. I don't know if Steve, has he gotten into the studio yet? Okay, we are still looking for him, but he's not there yet. We don't see him right at this point in time. Jack, what do you think? Give some thoughts.
Well, Bruce, one thing I think it's important to recognize is there is an appalling lack of understanding of how to develop a budget, especially in an economic recession. Right. When you have a dramatic drop in your source of revenue, and we're going to have that because of the unemployment, because of the pandemic, what you typically do, the first thing you do is establish strategic priorities. And I would hope that one of the top priorities on that list would be safety for all the residents in our city. And then from that, you build out your budget on a base of prioritized projects to make sure that your highest priority projects are met. We have to recognize that how impactful and how much of a downturn we're going to have from this coronavirus is far from known. We may expect, some estimates I'm seeing is we may see 20% unemployment by the end of this year, and we may not see this quick bounce back that some people were hoping for. We may in fact say 4, 5, or 6 years before we come close to returning to the 2019 economy. This is a global recession. This is not just a US problem.
Exactly.
We've shut down trade, we've shut down commerce, we've shut down so many cities across the US, and we're slowly starting to open up some of these cities. But what we're seeing around the world from the friends that I have in Europe and Asia and Australia and Africa is as they open up some of these cities, some communities are seeing a real spike in illnesses. And that causes them to pull back and to shut down. So the stop and start we have on our global economy will be very difficult to predict. But what I think the most likely assumption is, it will be a longer and more difficult recession than we've seen perhaps in anyone's lifetime.
Yes,
so
yes.
From that standpoint, you must have a series of scenarios to be able to adjust to different streams of revenue.
You know, Jack, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm saying, you notice this, the switch. We've gone from a situation, i.e. from racism and having that discussion around the George Floyd situation, and we've gone to coronavirus when in essence we've got two major issues here: the one that you just shared, and the one with reference to police, and not taking it in a negative way as far as the police, but the opportunity, if you will, to
Right.
talk about law enforcement and public safety and the like, and do we have the right structure as far as law enforcement officers, as opposed to just police, and all of a sudden getting the police in a position where they're being looked upon like they're the mayor. And we got this divide, this major divide, and then that's one of the reasons why we don't have a chief of police. Sure, we have the president of a union, because they identify with the troops. But so as a result of that, we've got someone who's outside of the mechanism, and realistically, they have no control. And when you think about it, it's always mentioned that police and that whole structure is paramilitary, and it's about chain of command kind of a deal. The commanding officer of the police department would be the chief of police, which sits under the commanding chief, if you will, which would have been the mayor. Got me? But in this particular structure, we got an issue over here where the police has a union, and that union situation, that's why it's such a kind of a, well, where do they fit? The definition of the union, to a certain degree, is the legal proportion, basically protecting the troops. Well, in all due respect, that legal department sitting in the city hall. We have legality there, see? And so and it's not about saying, okay, fine, we're going to take away the protection of the police. That's a tough job. That's a tough job. We've got families, they're just like regular human beings and things of that nature. But the fact of the matter is that union is being looked upon as if they're the spokesperson for the police department. So we need to have a good discussion around that aspect of it. Maybe if a person wants to get some outside legal help, a block routine, that might be something that comes about if in fact a police person may have done something that they did not adhere to the regulations of what they are supposed to be familiar with and was trained with. Outside of that, then if that's the case, then they have to basically be looked upon just like any other individuals, if you will. So I'm saying that let's not get away from that. The main force. We got two major issues all at the same time, and just the other little point I might add real quick, is that on this whole issue with coronavirus aspect of it, I've always had a problem with really supporting the direction and the focus that they're keeping, dealing to try to solve that problem from the standpoint, this whole issue of testing. And when you start talking about testing, okay, I test you, you've got a problem, but guess what? You don't have a solution.
Right.
You don't have a solution. It should have been just the opposite. The solution, and at times they were talking about something that was available to solve that problem. But again, it got into the politics, if you will, of media between Fox and whatever. So all of a sudden, the president was basically talking about a pill medication that was being used for a long time that could probably maybe do something about that as an interim. That was a start. But then it was thrown off the table by the other faction because it was political. Got me? Even though it might have been a cure, but the bottom line got into politics. So that's the only major problem I have with the testing piece. And as you note, as a result of that whole testing piece, everybody all of a sudden got tested, said go home. Then you go on, and if you were positive, in some cases, people wouldn't say anything about it. They just go home.
Well, I think it's important to recognize that we still have a shortage of testing kits available to test people. So the priority with the available kits was based on people that had the most obvious symptoms. The problem with the COVID-19 virus is the fact you have asymptomatic people that may actually have the virus and may be a carrier, but may have no real obvious signs of the actual virus itself.
Right.
And so effectively, they can be spreading this virus and to people that aren't even aware that they have the virus itself. So from that standpoint, this is far more difficult than, let's say, the Spanish flu, where the symptoms were very obvious from that standpoint. So from that standpoint, there's still a lot of unknowns that are there. Why in the world do we have one of the lowest rates of COVID-19 certainly compared to states north of us and south of us, like Washington and California? I don't know. I've asked a friend of mine who's my neighbor, who's a doctor. He's on the board that looks at the certification. And I have asked him that question, and he said, there is so much that we don't know about this. We know some people will have severe effects and obviously can be terminal. And he said it's not necessarily a direct correlation to age. So again, they're trying to learn as much as they can, but we have a disease that little is known or a lot more needs to be known. And so the severity and the impact of it is yet to really to be understood.
All right, then. Well, like I said, we at least we made that point about the fact now we're switching back and forth, right? You got me? We're talking about the race piece, and then we're also talking about the whole issue with the virus aspect of it. Okay, let's get back on the whole issue of the race piece, and then when you start thinking about the issue up in Seattle, Washington, right now, about the idea that you got this city within a city, so to speak, and they're really having some major problems. And there's the mayorship. I'm sure, just like you, I looked at some of the news spots that were being carried on that piece, and I saw the mayor was there making her statement about the fact that, gee whiz, well, no problem, so to speak. These folks are just having a good time, just in simple terms, so to speak. It's not simple, but it's good times. And then they showed those photos, and then they showed the chief of police, this woman who's the chief of police, and she's wanting to go. But in all due respect, she's talking about the possibility of solutions. But in all due respect, she understands that chain of command. She's waiting for the mayor to tell her to go on and do it. In essence, because that's in two things. One, the chief of police is supposed to have the solution because she was trained that way. And she knows her troops right in front with you. And then the mayor just basically said the mayor should be aware of the fact of what that is. And then it's just a matter of picking up the phone, chief, going on and take care of it, take care of the job. I mean, it's announced, blah, blah, blah. They make the announcement, and they're giving you maybe some sort of a curfew. You've got 4 hours, or you got until tomorrow morning to clean yourself up, take your persons away, and we're gonna go on and clean this thing up. But it's not happening. It's not happening right now. It's not happening. And then you shift it over, and when I throw this out there, then we shift it over to the governorship, and then that's the next command level, if you will. And the state is not doing anything from the governor's standpoint, and then the governor turns around and say, well, it's the problem with the president. And then the president is saying, okay, fine, I have a plan, but the fact of the matter is we don't want you to touch it, so to speak. And the president is saying, okay, fine, I'm responsible for all the states, so to speak. I got a plan, but I've got this governor saying, or this mayor, or whatever, saying, okay, fine, you can't do anything. Anyway, I can go on and on and on. Any points you might want to share with?
Well, what I enjoy history, and you realize the last area that tried to secede from the Union was Plaquemines Parish in Louisiana in the 1930s.
Mm.
And when the mayor for that area, for the family that controlled Plaquemines Parish, announced he was seceding from the Union, the president at that time said, well, we'll be sending down federal troops. Mm-hmm. So some of the people are claiming that they are actually seceding from the United States. Right. So that's a very serious statement to make. The question or the concern I have is the area that they've basically abandoned the police station at the mayor's orders. Mm-hmm. So the chief of police did not like that and openly stated she disagreed with it, but she was following her boss, the mayor, the city mayor of Seattle. The problem is, I would like to ask the mayor of Seattle, did you ask everyone that has a business in that area? Do you ask everyone that lives in that area if they agree with this? The mm-hmm. people whose businesses were destroyed or houses and apartments were destroyed, are they happy with the outcome? So from that standpoint, I think we have to recognize that this is an action of a group and it is not representative of the entire community. So to me, there's an immediate problem like that right there, and that tells me there's a lack of real leadership in the city of Seattle.
Yes, very much so. You make an excellent point about that piece, and then the other thing that's interesting, that's being viewed by everybody. Everybody's looking at this situation, and then we're trying to compare that with our own within our own area here in the Portland metropolitan area and saying, what would we do if we'd been in the same situation? You know what I mean? And I hate to say it, but we'd probably be in the same situation here right now, because right now there's no leadership. We don't have any leadership. And which and look, I can understand and appreciate when somebody gets the job, and however you get it, whether if you got a couple more bucks than the other guy, because that's really the way elections are run. But maybe things have changed now. It will have to change that matter. The fact of the matter is, you got to have a resume. I mean, I keep running back to that same point. You got to have some sort of a background that sort of shows that you have some leadership kind of skills. But like I said, we've got 5 individuals sitting at the table, and like you said at the beginning of the show, Joanne Hardesty is kind of like, she's just taking the initiative, and in some cases, realistically, it might be the wrong thing, but she's taking the leadership, and that's impressive. But in some
perhaps that's because she's a veteran.
Oh yeah, got to remember that. Yes, I remember doing her. She is a Navy vet. She is a Navy vet. I realize that they are the Department of the Marine Corps, but that's okay. I think
the Navy might say it a little the other way around, Bruce, but that's all right.
Oh no. Some of my Navy buddies out there really understand that. I'm sure I'll probably get some calls on that.
I'm sure you will.
But anyway, as being a Marine recruiter, I even recruited some Navy guys to get into the Marine Corps.
Right.
That's okay, no problem. But the bottom line is that that's kind of like where we're going from at this point in time. Again, that situation in Seattle is huge. It is public. And by the way, for those of you who again, like I said, we're all journalists. If you got a computer or you got a hand phone or whatever, I mean, trust me, you can stress yourself out because you're getting bombarded by all kinds of information when you did. But if you can just stay focused, you can Google it. Just Google Seattle problems, or in the city or something, or the police chief or whatever, and you'll get some background and whatever. And have these discussions like Jack and I are having right now, here, just like right now. You have the opportunity to have these discussions, and it's good to have those discussions. And after you've had those discussions and you guys come up with a consensus to it, pick up the phone and call up the mayor's office. See how many phone calls you get back. And to this date, we've gotten none. That's why we're doing this show, and that's why we're just basically doing it in a kind of a leisure way of doing it, because it's just too much to try to get everybody to the table. And indirectly, we've gotten people at the table. But you've got a table too, and you've got that option to basically think about this thing and come up with your own opinion. There's nothing wrong with that because you're paying for it. You gotta remember, you're paying for it. You're the taxpayer. These people work for you. Whoever gets elected to office is not a partisan situation when they sit in that chair. You have access to those folks 24/7. They've got the. But in all due respect, that's something else that we're missing. We're missing in our environment. Normally, we're sort of dependent upon the media, and a lot of times people just don't read the newspapers anymore. They don't read the newspapers. They don't look at the news or whatever. We're gonna close up for a minute. We'll see you right back. Welcome back, folks. Again, the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, and we're here in Oregon Voters Digest, and we're trying to make some sense of what's happening today. And if you missed the first half, you can catch us. You can catch us on Facebook, or you can catch us on YouTube, or whatever, and you can catch up with us. But we're just going to get right into where we took this short little stop, if you will, and now we're going to get back into the business. I got Jack Kirkford here on the program with me at this point in time, and we've been talking about 2 areas. Like I said, we didn't want to mix apples and oranges together aspect of it, because you got the coronavirus that's sitting up there waiting, and that's hitting hard. In fact, no, just a little brief on that piece. Today is, well, we're broadcasting this thing we're putting this thing together on a Friday, and guess what? The county was supposed to open. It was the last county in the state that wasn't open. Well, guess what? The governor has kind of pushed it up again. It's closed again. So and the spike is coming up again. So people are getting a little nervous about this stuff. So you're really gonna have to go down and get that mask on and be a little cautious and stay home, especially those of you who are over 70. You got to stick around the house. That's a toughy piece aspect of it. I mean, old jarheads like me, I mean, nothing stops us. You got a 101 on the Hauser on the other side with Jack. You see,
Bruce, I think your advice is very important to communicate, because I just saw on my social media that a
yeah,
young man who's been protesting for the last 7 days in Portland has just contracted the coronavirus. And I hate to think of how many other people he may have infected or may also have it as well. But we
wow,
have to recognize that some of those people may not show symptoms. They may be asymptomatic. And so it's very important that they get tested and follow the appropriate protocol.
right, right, right. Unfortunately, we don't have the medication yet. I hate to put it that way to you. I mean, everybody gets checked with no medication, you know. So for those, so my point is, if in fact you don't have any, we don't have the medication yet, stay home, stay home, and wash your hands and all that other good stuff and whatever, and be very careful. And one of the things I do, just straight up with you, I get up early in the morning. If I want to go shopping, I go shopping at about 7 o'clock in the morning. Not too many people in the store or whatever. I get my goodies and I get home. No problem. Understand? Because that stuff, first they tell you 6 feet, now they're telling you 10 feet, then they tell you 20 feet, and then sometimes it takes 15 minutes. That stuff is flying around and going on. I'm not trying to be funny about this, Pete, but that's some serious stuff. I mean, you hear about these body counts, and you're looking at the graphs and this, that, and other. You may not be one of these people, but trust me, you're just as vulnerable as anyone else. If all of a sudden you start coughing, you're getting red-eyed or something of that nature, or you don't know what's going on, trust me, it's a heck of a deal. So be careful and be cautious about this deal. And every so often, look at the views and turn on your radio and understand what that coronavirus is all about. And be careful. Trust me, be careful. Okay. Having said that piece, we're going to jump right into this on this other end of it now. We're going to get back to the whole issue with George Lowe. Remember, George Lowe was a very serious piece. He's given us the opportunity. So this young man would not have died. He would not have died of what am I looking for, Jack? He's not going to die in vain or whatever, something to that.
Yes, right.
Yeah, he's not. We got to make sure that we respect that. And he's given us the opportunity to talk about an issue that's been plaguing us for years and years, and that's the race card. We're all involved in it. It's going to take us both, all of us for that matter, to solve this problem in this country that we've had. It's called America, and we're all Americans, and we don't need any divide, especially now. We don't need any divide. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. So we got to work this thing out. So we have the opportunity to do that, and let's do it. And since public safety is at the top of the list because the person had a uniform on, and I had a uniform on, Jack had a uniform on at one point in time, and we understand what that's all about because we fought for this country. We were there protecting you. That's what we were doing, and kind of look at it from the standpoint of a crime. We were dealing with the bad guys. Okay, so the same thing here. We got a police force, but they're correction officers. They're public safety officers, if you will. And so that's what that's all about. And they get their orders from you, the public. They get their orders from you, the public. And the way they do that, the way we, the public, get involved in that process, we elect people. We elect people to office. And in this case, we got a Portland City Council. All 5 of those individuals, if you will, in all due respect, are our employees. They're the ones that basically talk to us and represent us from the standpoint of coming up with some kind of a guidelines and that reacts to what our needs are as it relates to public safety. And then they basically bring the troops in and say, okay, fine, we're going to train you to make sure that you enforce these regs, if you will. They understand, they get it trained, and then that's what they're there for. And if they get out of bounds of that, and as a former military person like Jack is sitting up right there, he knows what happens. If you mess up, the first sergeant gets you up if you're in the ranks and whatever, and you either lose your stripes depending upon the severity of the situation, and if not that, you go to the briggs, and if you're not that, you get thrown out, and then if not that, you go to the pen. It's just right down the line. We understand that, and that's one of the reasons why when you find a military background person, they understand the rules and the regs, and right up front with it, probably the most eligible person from the standpoint of being a local police person in most cases, the military, because they understand the system, they understand the game, and it just bothers me well, I won't put it that way. My point is that we got to understand there's a system there. We need to understand what a public safety officer is all about. So having said that, let's jump right in this deal from where we went to the last 30 minutes or so. We started talking about the budget, and then that was the thing that they were. Because when I think about Joanne Hardesty, I mean, she spent a number of years here in the Portland metropolitan area in the Northeast corridor, dealing with the whole issue of police. And in most cases, she was basically very critical of police. And you can just check her record. You just Google the name, there it is. She was there with the Ministerial Alliance and this, that, and the other, and back and forth and back and forth. And now she's sitting in a very responsible position. But she was a leader. She was leading in that capacity. My point is that we need to take advantage of that. You know, I know her, and she knows me. But at the same time, it's there. Trust me, it's a tough job. When she got on that city council seat, the mayor didn't give her, which I felt was the best slot on that area from the standpoint of her viewpoint. And that it should have given her the police. Why not? Give her the police, and she would have dealt with it. Trust me. And we got Daryl Turner sitting. He's up there. He's the union chief, if you will, of police. He's also a policeman, and there would be no problem with Joanne Hardesty and being able to call him in the office and talk about what's on her mind. But at the same time, Daryl would have been there because he understands the grounds on the people on the truth on the ground, and then they would have to talk. They would talk, and so I think that was a mistake on Ted Willis' part, the mayor, if you will, by not giving her the police. That would have been good. I think there would have been some changes there, really would. But she's not stupid. Trust me, she's very sharp from the standpoint. Because in all due respect, when you're sitting out here as a public, and even like I and like Dak, I mean, we don't have access. We pick up the phone and call these people. They won't return your calls. My point is that let's not forget about the fact that she does have good skills. All right, with that piece. All right. Well, now with that, I think we might be able to get Fred to come back on this time around, and we'll
I don't see a video thing.
to share some stuff aspect of it. So Steve is still working on him a little bit. We haven't seen his head. Jackson, what do you think? Why don't you come on in? Can you hear me?
All right.
Are you okay?
Let me just address a few of the issues at hand. We're hearing a broad range of proposals by different people in different factions. So I think it's very important that we recognize the plus and minuses for each of the proposals that are there.
Right.
One of the issues that are being raised, and Commissioner Hardesty has talked about the importance of community policing.
Right.
Absolutely. And when I was running for city commissioner and I reached out to communities across the entire city, I heard nothing but positive support for community policing. The same police working in the same sectors of the city, getting to know the public and the issues and the challenges of that area. So that's a very positive factor. Now, the problem is we have over 105 vacancies within the police department right now, and that's just the officers. And another 35 or 40 people have already put in their retirement papers.
Right.
So when they talk about cutting the budget and eliminating 100 positions, what we're really saying is we're going to make it virtually impossible to do community policing. I've done 2 ride-alongs, and I've met with Daryl Turner on several occasions. He told me 10, 15 years ago, as an officer, he would spend 4 to 6 hours a day doing community policing. But as time progressed and vacancies increased, the amount of time he had as an officer, as a patrolman, to do community policing decreased. Finally, 4 or 5 years ago, just before he became the head of the union, the police union, he said he was lucky to get 1 to 2 hours a day. So if we really want community policing, then we have to recognize we have appropriate staffing. Now, another question is, and this is from Commissioner Hardesty, do we have the right training for the officers for the community engagement? That's a very good question. We've got to recognize the military changed dramatically from when you and I were in, Bruce, when it was a draft army, a draft military, to now a fully professional military. Technology's changed, approaches have changed, combat techniques have changed. The way police are doing it are very different in many cities than they are others. Obviously, Minneapolis has some real problems. Historically, they have, quite candidly, very bad performance by their officers, and the brutality in Minneapolis is notoriously bad. So we've got to recognize that there are new techniques that can be applied. What's interesting is that in the city of Dallas, Texas, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys has just contributed $1 million to the city of Dallas for the police for training, for retraining for police. And I thought that was quite interesting that his focus was to get work and improve the training and development of the police, existing police and future police, and how they interact with the community. So developing those relationships with the community, developing those relationships the police have with law enforcement, including the prosecutors, and also the other aspects across the city council, to me is absolutely critical. So the way the police do business is changing, and it needs to change, and more changes will need to occur in the future. But we have to recognize what we want are strong, young police officers, men, women, people of color, going into that job. And right now, it's not a job that too many people in school think about in high school or junior high. It's a job that they want because they are ridiculed, criticized, and quite candidly, a tremendous amount of hate is being shown to our police force.
Well, you know, Jack, in all due respect, the first thing that I think about when people start talking about community policing is that a lot of them don't know the definition of community policing. You got me? And when you think about it, back in the old days, in fact, and on Oregon Voters Digest, I've done a number of shows on community policing with police folks, okay? And Don Dupay was a heck of a guy. He was police at one point in time, and he did community policing, meaning that he was assigned a particular district, if you will.
Yes.
I mean, and that's, again, here we go again. We need to districtize the city. You districtize the city. You got 4 commissioners. You would have 4 districts, and you would have a community. You have community policing. Officers would be assigned to each of those districts. That job would be, it would know exactly what that district is all about, house to house to house. They would know that piece.
Right.
And my point is that that's lacking right now because the city is not districtized. Got me? And then each part of that community policing would be the commissioner assigned in that particular district because they would be in relationship, have a relationship with the police that are in that particular area.
Absolutely.
So consequently, the public can contact these folks on an ongoing basis. So that to me is one of the lacking. It's not just Northeast Portland, i.e. for the gangs up in Northeast Portland that we need community policing. And that's where they're addressing it to, just one particular area. I mean, we got 4 different areas that have the same deal. We got just as many young kids in those areas and problems in those areas. And they're the public and they're paying for this whole deal. So I think community policing is fine, but we need to really define and educate the people who are responsible for putting that piece together. I want to make sure we throw that piece out. It looked like we got.
That's a very important part because now what we're talking about is moving away from the classic commissioner system that we have today.
Exactly.
Having commissioners representative of different sectors of the city.
Right.
I absolutely support that position.
Exactly. And hopefully when they talk about this budget, you can start thinking about that. And they need more manpower. They got to get more manpower. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about, George Lowe. That was that all about. Okay, fine. So we need officers across the board. And, right up front, we need officers across the board. And talk to the whole issue of race and whatever, but that's all part and parcel of that. So now it looks like we have Fred sitting up there. Is he in there? Can he hear us? He can't hear us. I see his face, but no, unfortunately, we're having some technical problems at this point in time. But I'm sure we'll be able to get him on in this next round aspect of it. But again, we need numbers. We need numbers. We do need numbers. And so you can't say in one case, I'm talking about city council right now, I'm talking about the city council folks, because a lot of the folks are saying, let's just do away with the police department. Well, you can't do that. These are law enforcement officers. Because trust me, imagine you get up, you go to a meeting, and you come home and somebody's broken into your house. What do? You pick up the phone and you do what?
That's it. I mean, unfortunately, evil is present everywhere in the world. And
right.
So we do have murders that are committed. We also have thefts that are committed. Now, I will say this, Commissioner Hardesty's approach toward a model using the fire department with a healthcare professional and a EMT to particularly be called out for dealing with people that may have mental health issues. That model has been used for over a decade in Salem. It's a group they call Cahoots, and that's proven to be quite successful. All the calls in Salem, though, come into the police 911, and then they decide whether to issue a police team or a team with the mental health professionals. So they make that call and also may have backup in case it is a situation more complicated from that standpoint. So I have seen very good reports from that, and the police in the Salem area have gained more confidence over the past decade. So those are different approaches that different cities are using that can be a viable option and may be a more effective manner for some cases.
But Jack, at the same time, I got to say this. I know this is somewhere a little disagreement. But did they go now? Did they call the chief? Did she sit down with the chief of police and identify basically what the problem is, and then say, okay, fine, can the force respond to that need or to that concern? And I'm telling you, yes. What's the definition of mental illness? I mean, we're in Portland, Oregon, and then they're in Eugene. Maybe they're dealing with more students or this, that, and the other. It's a whole different ballgame when you're sitting up here in a so-called sanctuary city where all kinds of folks are coming in. And you got guys that are being trained in one way, and and have mental illness there too. Now, if they want to have a mental illness center, that's a different ballgame. We used to have one. We don't have one anymore.
Bruce, I would say this: when it first started over a decade ago, all the calls came into 911, and there may be over the year, maybe a few dozen times, the police actually called out Cahoots. But those numbers have dramatically increased, over tenfold, actually over 100-fold increase in the number of times the police are now calling out Cahoots. They feel more comfortable with the ability to respond, and they're also understanding the right questions to ask relative to when to call out a Cahoots team, a mental health professional with an EMT, and when to call in someone with, let's say, police experience and expertise. So I think the answer is it depends. What's happened with the case in Portland, though, the calls are being directed as a pilot project to the fire department. So my concern is the calls going into the fire department, and then they're making a decision whether or not to issue this team of a fire vehicle with an EMT and a mental health professional or not. Now, how the backup, or if there's backup to the police, I'm unclear on how that's going to be handled in this pilot project in Portland. So
and I'm not trying to cut you off, but again, what are you going to do? Pull out a fire truck and make the call? What are you going to do?
It would be a smaller fire vehicle, an EMT vehicle, not a full fire truck.
And then when you get down to help the guy out, the guy's got a knife in his hand. What do you do then?
Those are the many questions that are raised from that situation, and how do you address it from that standpoint? What is your backup plan?
Right.
I'm saying, Bruce, as you know, the biggest problem is when you get a phone call in to 911, you're getting a one person's description of the situation, and when the people actually arrive on site, it may be entirely different. So absolutely, those are risks and uncertainties, and they need to understand it before they make the decisions.
Well, I can appreciate, like I said, I appreciate very much, but I'm telling you, there are folks out there right now that are local police, or the police aspect of it. They were trained to deal with the whole situation.
Right.
They were trained to do that situation. And I'm just saying that communication is key. When you talk about a mental health person, you got to be able to communicate. And that's part and parcel of the training of any officer, anybody in that situation where you're dealing with other human beings. You got to be able to communicate. And in some cases, know the difference between when you communicate as opposed to pulling a firearm out and just start shooting. You got my point? And these guys are trained. They know. But the bottom line is that they don't know when to be trained and how to be trained. That's a key position. But I really feel that the force can deal with it. If you've got, if you will, the communication with the people who are leading the charge. Like saying so many words, that's why I said you got to have some sort of a resume. If in fact you're going to run for office, for instance, as far as the budget, the mayor is not He is not a communicator as far as the police, handling the police. That's not his background. He can't be
Well,
mayor and police commissioner at the same time. That's two
well,
different heavy
Bruce,
jobs.
Bruce, as you know, in almost every city in the United States, uh, the position of police commissioner is held by what trained, experienced police officers that have had many years of experience. And it's just a different position. It is not a elected position per se. So we have a unique city form of government. That's all I will agree. And I strongly believe it needs to be changed.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, man. So hopefully Mayor Wheeler was understanding that. I mean, I would say if you want to solve some of your problems with the whole issue of rioting downtown, assign that commission piece, police commission piece to Joanne Hardison. And I tell you, she may even get in the front line and she'll get into this issue right away. Have to have someone responsible enough to be able to talk to the people out there. And the reason why I'm being, her resume dictates the fact she's into that social mind stuff. She's talked to many of those folks before. So put her in that position that she can go out there and address these folks. Why not? And I'm telling her that right now. I'm saying, give her that job. Give her the job. And have that liaison in your office, because those people they're all on the force with you. So if you got a job in your own self, Well, anyway, but I just want to make sure I threw that out piece aspect of it. The idea is that George Flow, we're supposed to be focusing on racism, systemic racism within the department, the law enforcement, public safety arena. Okay, that's the deal. We got two males there. We got the white and we got the black and this, that, and the other. And that's an issue. So that's where the force is. That's why we got so many, everybody's responding. Even the president is responding on this issue. So let's not confuse it. Don't get me wrong. I know that we got coronavirus. That's a different ball game. That's a whole different ball game. Let's not lose the focus. And I go along with Reverend Sharpton and the representative that basically even identified Joe Biden, if you will, for vice president. Okay, fine. But he did. And he said it made it straight up. This is about race and we got to deal with it. We've been dealing with this stuff too long. And all of a sudden we came up with all kinds of so-called solutions. And the biggest word that really screwed the whole thing up was coming up with this so-called minorities. And I know I'm not a minority. I know Fred's not one. And I know you're not one. We're all Americans. The only way we're going to be able to change that situation. People are just tired of it. And that's why I made the point when that happened, in my whole mindset, I said, no way. Race is going to have to be solved. There's not going to be, I do not want to see that kind of a video on the tube anymore forever. And we've got that responsibility as a senior, if you will, in the arena. Our young people, they need to get the education. They need to understand the respect for all individuals and all human beings in our country. And they're part of this country. They're not different. They own a piece of that rock. That's why we fought for this country. We've got our own heroes across the board. And
Well,
that history is there. Put it in the
nothing
school.
like the military, especially combat arms, to learn that there is no such thing as race. You're only
That's right,
concerned
buddy.
about the other people in your platoon or your company.
That's
trying
right.
to protect your brother.
That's right. We know that very well, don't we? You even learn it in boot camp. Because if you don't understand it, you'll know it. You'll either be out or you'll be somewhere else.
You're only as good as your weakest link, and so anybody that's falling behind, you got to help them out and get them up and make sure they can help the whole unit work together and
Exactly.
survive.
Exactly. We mentioned not the fact about the president. Just briefly, I think we got a couple more minutes left on this piece. But the bottom line is that the president is going to hold a rally on June 18th. I think it was June 18th, or June 19th, 17th in Florida. In Florida, and naturally that's right around Juneteenth. When basically the president at that time it was Lincoln, who sent the troops down to Galveston to let the slave owners know that the slaves were free. They were free men and women, and that's that celebration during that time. So we need to understand what that history is all about, and that could help out. That should be taught into the schools. So sure, he's doing that. And then there was the other issue that was brought up with from the standpoint. He thought about the whole issue of Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma, about the whole issue of the massacre of blacks and the business about the Black Wall Street. What does that mean? Well, guess what? I mean, that has some significance, and in terms of how blacks were assimilating on their own in this country. I mean, it was Wall Street, who well-to-do black folks, had communities, they had all kinds of business and shops and whatever, and that history is there, and you can Google that. All you have to do is just say Black Wall Street, and it'll come on your. You can Google it on YouTube, and you'll see all of the various versions of that stuff, that deal. In fact, that's here, and he was born up in that arena in
Tulsa,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Yeah, well, I'm from Tulsa, yes.
Yeah, he was from Tulsa.
31. That was part of our history. I'm very glad to say that when I went through middle school and high school, that was part of our history, along with history of the Native Americans as well, that were forced onto Indian territory. So at the time, the schools were very good about identifying the different history, good and bad, of our country.
Right.
And recognizing, more importantly, this was the time when people asked, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So
Right.
yes, we've made missteps, but the question is, how do we get better, and how do we do it better? And do we help our brothers and sisters in this country to take the next step up and move forward in the best possible way?
And and just like you were saying, Jack, you got that in your classroom, right? You were in school. Well, guess what? They never shared that around the country. See what I'm saying? And the guy who was talking currently, who's living, was saying, hey, look, they called him up and said, don't you object the idea that the President of the United States is rallying on that day? He said, oh no, I welcome this. He's a black man. He said, no, I welcome this. We'll be able to tell this story about Black Wall Street and what that meant. You know what I'm saying? And what was that whole rationale? And it just so happened that the person who was interviewing was from CNN, and he was thinking about getting some hits against President Trump. But at the end of the day, he understood what the guy was saying. He kept saying, wait a minute. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just telling you that in this country, it's about the green. I mean, and he talked about the Italians and the Polacks and whatever, how they came and how they were discriminated against. Sure, they might have had white skin, but guess what? They basically developed long enough because they had a little advantage because they had white skin. But the bottom line, when the blacks came, again, they had maybe a little bit more of a disadvantage because of the dark skin. But he said, look, all we were trying to do is, we figured out, hey, why don't we just go down and get white skin? That's where the Black Wall Street came about. It was just a few blacks, and they just developed in the town and learned how to deal with the markets and this, that, and the other. And there were millionaires all over the place. They had shops, they had cars, and this, that, and the other, and it just blows your mind. And in fact, the series of Grant, when Lincoln just got killed, when Lincoln got killed, Grant took over because he became president, and they showed photos of blacks going to school and voting, and and just geared, the whole 9 yards, very prosperous and whatever. But again, for some reason, we still had that minority group piece. We didn't solve that. The person didn't deal with the contract like they were supposed to, and unfortunately, we got right back in the deal. We didn't have anybody to take it from that point on. But now we're back here now. Here's the difference. We got Al Sharpton. Trust me. You got Reverend Al Sharpton, and you got Al Sharpton. I say that with respect, because it made it very clear what is about. This person did not die in vain. He understood what George Lowe was all about. The world knows what George Lowe is all about, because it has an impact on everybody, and we are the leadership in this world. These United States is, and let's go on and respect that, and let's make sure we understand what's going on. Let's not deviate from that deal. Okay, so with that, I think we had a heck of a show. And look here, we let Fred on next time around, let him talk. You have a good one, and share the show with your neighbors and talk about it. Call your commissioner, call your mayor. Have a good one.